My walk today included me taking a stroll through a cemetery that's near my home. And I'm very introspective by nature. I like to spend a lot of time thinking and reflecting. But a cemetery is the perfect place for introspection, I feel, because all around you're given reminders of how fleeting our existence is on earth, and how most of us, no matter how long we live, will wish we had just a little bit longer. And there's a lot of things that the cemetery can remind us of, not just how fleeting life is, but reminders to ask ourselves if we're happy with how we're spending our days and the trajectory we're on for our future. And, like I just turned 40 recently, but I hope to live another 40, 50 years. That would be great, but I may not. And I always have to ask myself, particularly when I ruminate over the past and I'm worrying about the future, I have to reflect whether that time I'm giving away to things that I can no longer control, or will never be able to control in the future, was it worth it? Was it worth the time that I lost on those ruminations and worries? And so I always, whenever I'm walking through a cemetery, it always reminds me to really ask myself, whenever I'm, again, ruminating or worrying, is it worth it? And I encourage you to ask yourself the same thing. I mean, you don't have to walk through a cemetery to ask yourself those things. It's a good reminder. We get all sucked into our lives, the day-to-day activities of paying the bills and surviving and maintaining our relationships. It's just, we get consumed with these details, and sometimes, it's easy to not slow down and ask ourselves if the movement is aligning with where we want to go in the future. Is it aligning with the legacy we want to leave after we're gone? And that's the other, reminder that the cemetery gives us, is it's a reminder that we have the opportunity to leave a legacy so that we'll be remembered after we're gone. And also, the reminder of the opportunity that we have a chance to make contributions to the world while we're here. We can move through life just existing and getting by, or we can aim to live a life that's fulfilling and impacts the lives of others while we're here, and possibly even long after we're gone. And so I reflect on those things when I'm there. I have a lot on my plate most of the time. I work a full-time job on top of having a business and writing and taking care of my health and relationships that are important to me. And I have to always ask myself if what I'm doing today is aligning with where I want to be tomorrow and the next day and a year from now and 5, 10, 15, and 40 years from now. And if we don't take the time to stop and ask ourselves if we're on the right path, years can pass by and we'll end up asking ourselves, where did those years go? And asking yourself, did I squander them? And unfortunately, that's where a lot of people start getting filled with regret. They always thought they had more time, and they got so sucked into the day-to-day survival mode that they forgot to just stop and ask themselves if if they're on track for how they want to be spending their days. Sorry, I've got ants crawling all over me. That's a thing with immersing myself in nature. Nature starts to think I'm part of their territory to be crawling on. So I've got like ants all over me. Sorry. So I guess I'm coming on today to really encourage you to ask yourself right now, and at least once a day, am I on track? Am I where I want to be? And if not, asking yourself, well, where is it that you do want to be, and what do you need to change to get there? Because I promise you, if you keep just going on like you're going now and you're not happy with it, and you don't change anything, a year from now, 5 years, 10 years from now, nothing's going to change, and you're going to still be dissatisfied. If you're currently dissatisfied now and you make no changes in the way you're experiencing life, you're going to continue to be dissatisfied. And ever since I've been young, I've always it gave me a little, it hurt me a little every time I heard somebody say, like complain about how terrible life is, and about how much they hate working, and they hate this and they hate that, and life's so hard, and no matter how many times I saw them, the story never changed. It was, a year could go by, 10 years could go by, and it's the same story on repeat. And I've always paid attention to the words people use to describe their life and life in general. And because I've always been introspective, I've always taken time to reflect on the results they're getting, and then also paying attention to people that love their life and really find joy and satisfaction in every day, and in their career and in their relationships, and seeing the difference between the individuals who are able to say a positive word and offer a smile most times you meet them. There's a difference between them and the person who is always filled with resentment and anger and dissatisfaction with life. And I'm not going to sit here and try to pretend that life is, always a cakewalk. I mean, if you know my story, I've experienced an immense amount of devastation in my life. So it's not hard for me to sit here and think about all of, the reasons why life is so terrible and so hard. And none of us would have a difficult time. I mean, it's so easy for all of us, regardless of whether you've experienced trauma or not. It's easy for all of us to think of the ways that life has in many ways devastated us. But we have a choice every day. We can choose to focus on the devastation, or we can choose to focus on what we have to be grateful for in this moment, and harness the little bit of control we do have over our future. Worrying about our future and what may or may not happen, most of it's out of our control. But, we can create a plan, and if we decide that we want to experience joy and happiness as much as we can in our days, then we have to ask ourselves every day, are we aligning with our mission? Are the words we're using in alignment with where we're heading? Because the words we use to describe ourselves and our experiences, our words are very important in getting us to where we want to go or pulling us off track. And so if you're only focusing on the devastation and how terrible life is, I encourage you to ask yourself whether focusing on that and ruminating over that is going to end up, when it comes time for you to exit this world, will you be filled with regrets? Or, I just want to encourage you to think about that. That are the ways that you're experiencing life right now, going to fill you with regret or fill you with joy and gratitude for all the experiences you did have during your fleeting time on Earth. And I was recently talking with somebody who's very, very, in many ways, society would consider very successful, and but she's got very much a wall. She's very rigid in her life, and very careful in showing emotions and expressing emotions, feeling emotions. And we were talking about, how in my life, because of all the tragedy I have experienced, there was a long period of my life where I just focused on how terrible life was. But it was during that time that I didn't want to live, because I thought that life was just so terrible. But since that time, I now can experience beauty and joy in every single moment. Like right now, there's a beautiful breeze, and it feels wonderful on this warm day. And that fills me, like it fills me with happiness and joy. And everything changed for me when I was able to start focusing on the beauty in my days and not the pain in my past and in my present life. And so now I want to make sure I don't end up in that cemetery underneath the ground for many, many more years. There was a time where I wanted to shorten my existence on Earth, and now I want it to be as long as it possibly can. And so I don't want to squander my days, and I encourage you not to squander yours, because it's only a short time, and boy, can it be a beautiful journey if you allow it to be. So thanks for listening.